Hi, folks. I'm Johnny B. And today we're going to go over something called ideological subversion. Ideological subversion is a type of warfare that is used to this day. All of those people you are seeing so ideologically subverted, so what you would like to call brainwashed, okay, is explained by this man here, Yuri Bezmenov. And this video was in 1983 or 1984. I've heard both. I thought it was 1983, then somebody told me it was 1984, and I think I heard it from Bill Still. It was 1984. Anyhow, back then, we heard something like this, and we went, and we never paid attention to it. We never did. And the reason we didn't pay attention to it is because we assumed that was out there. That was a fairy tale. That was a tinfoil hat. Okay, nice. It's a nice story. It's like ooh, but whenever we were kids, especially in that era, the only people that we ever thought were commies were the Soviet Union. We never thought anyone else was a communist. We didn't really know what a communist was. We didn't know that people like Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela were all communists in their own way. You can call them anti-colonials. Okay, you can call these socialists or socialist democrats. Socialist democrats really are them. Those that call themselves socialist democrats really are the Bolshevik Party. Look at the definition of Bolsheviks. And you'll see it says Socialist Democratic Party. Okay? And the very concept of what they are is communism, collectivism, totalitarianism. All right. Now, there are many ways to indoctrinate the mind. This was a concept used, believe it or not, it wasn't created by Antonio Gramsci. He wrote it in his notebooks in the 20s, 1920s, and they used it when they opened up their Frankfurt School. But Sun Tzu was a Chinese philosopher that was like 500 BC, and he used to tell people how to subvert a society into agreeing with them, which is much stronger than to just conquer them. Okay? And he says that the KGB used to study this. It's a very small book. Everyone should buy it. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Okay? And so we're going to go over this. But before we go over this, I actually studied this for a long time. And in October of 2016, I believe. It could have been 2017, but I think it was 2017. Yeah, I think it was 2017. I wrote my analysis of ideological subversion. So we're going to go over that first, then we're going to go over this, okay? Okay, so this is mine. All right. All right. Ideological subversion. In the midst of me trying to figure out where I stood politically, I ran across a video by Yuri Bezmenov. He was a former Russian propagandist who fled to Canada to escape the Marxist indoctrination. The very Marxist indoctrination that he was a part of. In 1983, like I said, 1983, he was interviewed and gave a lecture of how the Russian KGB infiltrated the United States and how approximately 85% of their warfare was on tearing apart countries from the inside by something known as ideological subversion. I became intrigued when I listened to him, not because I myself wanted to be indoctrinated into Marxism, but I felt that everything he stated was occurring in 2016. I felt he was dead on accurate. How could America be so hoodwinked into letting Marxism infiltrate every single aspect of our society and not even know it was going on? How could Americans be so naive not to pick up on such overt teachings of Marxism? It was so overt. It was so out in the open that it created so many questions in my head. I came to the conclusion that Americans didn't realize these things were going on because we were arrogant. We were arrogant of the thought that anything like this could ever be a part of our society. It must be something we only see on spy movies, in spy novels. However, in actuality, it was occurring all around us, and we did nothing to stop it. As I started to dig further and further into ideological subversion, I realized that advocacy groups all around the country were a part of this conversion into socialism. We had leaders and leaders of movements in the past 60 years that were major infiltrators of Marxism. Saul Alinsky, a left-wing radical of Marxism, pushed community organizing to a new level. The groups that were involved in socialism even included the Catholic Church. It was all around us. How did we not see it? Because we justified every action the left did with liberal beliefs as long as none of these actions appeared to affect our lives directly or indirectly. We were okay with it. We let this action go onward and forward. We would complain a little. Nobody would listen. We would create organizations against Marxism in the past. Again, all to no avail. The reason being is our social standard of living never appeared to be affected. The leave us alone mentality was rampant throughout our country as globalists, elitists, Marxists, converted liberals kept barking, whining, and shouting for more. We merely stepped aside. Affirmative action, allowing gay rights and civility, changing church language to be politically correct appeared to be the changing norm as we stood by and did nothing. We felt our lives change the past 25 years or so. We didn't know about ideological subversion. We didn't understand Marxism or the ideas or the end game of socialism. Again, why? Because we never felt the urgency to do so. Our lives appeared to be normal. Children, school, education, proper education, church, it didn't matter. Nothing appeared too strenuous or dramatic a change for us to do anything about it. All of this changed within the past few years as we felt this divisiveness and the split in our country. We could feel that our voices were no longer relevant. Our voices were minimized and our voices were squashed in fear of losing jobs and being ostracized by our community. It grew and grew. And then Donald Trump happened. We felt it. We knew it. We knew he was the change. We saw the split and corruption in our government as well as the media. The media every day became less and less important. They became less and less trustworthy. Now many of us don't listen to them at all. Case in point, we have grown the past year or so wary of our intelligence agencies and our media that we don't trust the news that came out of Las Vegas about the killing of 59 citizens in the most horrific attack on U.S. soil. Everything appears to be a cover-up. We have more faith in citizen journalists than we do any of the mainstream media or agencies involved in the investigation. Whose fault is this? Ours? No, it is their fault. Their fall of trustworthiness has given rise to many hundreds, if not thousands, of citizen journalists who simply want the truth. And of course, so do we. We have flooded to social media and into our conservative echo chambers, not allowing any liberal thought or suggestion of any news or information because we automatically assume it is twisted with lies, deceit, corruption, and evil intentions. Here's the thing. We usually are correct about our assumptions. So this split is going to continue as long as we try to figure all of this mess out. Ideological subversion. Around 544 BC, a Chinese military strategist, philosopher named Sun Tzu, was the advisor to many Chinese imperial courts. He suggested that implementing a state policy in a warlike manner was counterproductive. He believed that obtaining the highest arc of diplomacy was to actually subvert people until their perception of you was no longer as an enemy, but rather a preferred alternative solution. He suggested that doing this overtly and legitimately through laws, you could use diplomats, officials, actors, students, professors, journalists, preachers, and teachers to subvert an entire generation of people into not only believing in your subversive tactics, but to be a defender of your tactics. Ideological subversion is a four-stage process. The first stage is called the demoralization stage. Every single KGB agent propagandizes the teachings of ideological subversion, and you will see they have done an incredibly effective job in the United States. Demoralization. It takes approximately 15 to 20 years to demoralize one generation of a society. Why so? Because it takes approximately that long to educate, propagandize, manipulate, and convert children to adulthood. This conversion shapes ever the outlook and the personality of the individual. They full-heartedly believe in the concept of Marxism by the time they are subverted. They attack 6 major groups. Number 1 is religion. The point here being to destroy the essence of religion, take away the deity, and replace the deity toward the state, and replace God and science with sex cults and fake organizations that believe in atheism, unfounded science reports, and sexual perversity. Enter the LGBT community. Education. Number 2. Destroy analytical and linear thinking and replace constructive, pragmatic, and efficient education with anything else that lends itself to non-constructive thinking. Do away with science, mathematics, engineering, computer science, and languages, and replace it with modern art, social sciences such as gender studies and African American studies. Number 3, social life. Replace respected institutions with fake organizations that push identity politics, social reform by instituting fake organizations that are bureaucratically run. Number 4, law enforcement and military. Erode the police by making them appear weak, dumb, angry, and psychotic. Make them appear to a community that they are unproductive. Weaken the military by feminization and insert social experimentation that creates chaos within the military to weaken it. Decrease the size and power of the military and decrease the voice of the alpha male that could stand up against a revolt. Number 5, labor employment. Institute laws of unfair guidelines based upon gender, sex, affirmative action, gay rights, ERA, to create chaos, overregulate, and make it nearly impossible for the majority to have a voice or sustainable action without a fight. Number 6, power structure. Replace the elected, trusted officials with people that were not elected and trusted their judgment as the standard of moral equivalency. This would be the mainstream media. Make sure that nobody is better or more knowledgeable than the other. Mediocrity and subverted media are key to holding this moral high ground on anyone. Start pushing the theory that all men are created equal. Have people believe this. Fight for it. Use the political structure if need be. Destroy the religious concept that by your deeds you will be judged. Emasculization of men. Have entire societies of feminized men. Take away the alpha male. Destroy the military. Push sex cults as equal beings. Take away guns and organizations that believe in sovereignty of their country. Take away patriotism. Don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. Disrespect the flag. Annihilate the essence of any previous reverence. Christian prayer, national anthems. Do not honor those that have died for the country. Find a way to destroy all essence of a written constitution and replace it with statist power. State above God. State above sovereignty. State above family. State above anything else. Group is more powerful than any one individual, including your own family. Be willing to kill your own family for the greater good of statism. Strip away protectionism of any sort. Guns, weapons, societal organizations, laws, and any ability to protect oneself against a moment when a military revolt must occur. Stage 2, destabilization. This stage lasts approximately 2 to 5 years. This is the stage of no more acceptance. It is better to die for a cause than to accept the current cause. The harder you fight, the better. Economy, radicalization of the bargaining process. When in doubt, fight in courts with the institution of law by selectively placing Marxist judges and justices to win. If you lose, never give up, keep fighting. Labor relations. This is where the media institutes itself with the KGB sleeper agents or agents of the cause, not necessarily a movement of the Russian institution. The media will always side on the side of the movement. Use every subgroup to your advantage to defeat the cause. DACA, BLM, LGBT, etc. Use the government and political structure wherever possible. Military. Weaken the size and strength of the military. Enter sex cults and social experiments to create chaos and break up the authority the military has on its people. Law and order. Fight, fight, fight. Never give up. Take every single case to court whether you win or lose. Be loud, be oppressed. The stronger your perceived perception, the more noise you can make, even if the oppression is feigned, unjust, to the other side, or perceived as manipulative. Simply create a narrative of oppression until people believe it. Stage 3, crisis. This stage lasts approximately 6 months. This is where the population at large looks for an almighty savior. They will elect a socialist or Marxist government leader. Non-elected committees of elites will become in charge because it's the right thing to do, for they know more than us. Strange new groups will pop out of nowhere with a special ability of knowing how to fix things. In actuality, they are there to replace one regime with an incoming communist government. Fake groups will claim power necessary by force. There will be either an expected civil war from the remaining dissidents or by an incoming country looking to invade your newly claimed land. 4. Normalization. This stage lasts approximately 6 weeks. In the case of Venezuela, it lasted 7.5 weeks. This is where the leader of the newly formed communistic country will claim everything is back to normal. Social justice warriors, homosexuals, opposing leaders, opposing politicians, Marxists, Leninists, Maoists, liberals, progressives, social workers, actors, professors, vocal oppressors, all will be either incarcerated or killed. There is no longer a need for them. They now represent the enemy because of their skills of being dissidents. They must be silenced permanently. How is any of this reversed? Before the normalization stage, the reinstitution of the religion and law and order. Strip away Marxism in our schools and selectively elect religious-minded anti-sex cults officials into government. Enforcement of law and order. Destabilize sex cults and opposing subgroups by taking away their power or incarceration. Destroy the media and all those non-elected people in power companies or industries that hold pro-Marxist and anti-liberty beliefs. Process takes approximately 12 to 15 years for one generation. So in America, it will take approximately 24 to 30 years to properly educate two generations into a society without Marxist power. Hey, look at this. I can play from here, I think. See if it works. I don't even have to switch. I didn't.
My father was, he's on the left here, my father was officer of the General Staff of the Soviet Army. He was inspector of land forces, Soviet troops stationed in countries like Mongolia, Cuba, East European countries. This is the picture taken at the entrance of my Institute of Oriental Languages. It's a part of Moscow State University. As every Soviet student, I was, quote-unquote, volunteering for harvesting grain in Kazakhstan. By the end of my training in school, I was recruited by the KGB. This picture was taken on that day, and you can see again how happy it feels to be recruited by the KGB. Pay special attention to number of bottles on the table. One of my functions was to keep foreign guests permanently intoxicated the moment they land at Moscow airport. In 1967, the KGB attached me to this magazine, Look magazine. A group of 12 people arrived to USSR from United States to cover the 50th anniversary of October Socialist Revolution in my country. From the first page to the last page, it was a package of lies.
Okay, this is good, but I got something better. I'm going to go over his actual teaching of ideological subversion. Here we go. There it is. Haha. Here it is. This is Yuri Bezmenov. Now, he went by a different name because when he came to Canada, he changed his name from Yuri Bezmenov to this name. You'll see it. They'll post it up. Okay. I want you to look at this. Ready? Here we go.
Subversion is the term, if you look in a dictionary or criminal code to that matter, usually is explained as a part of activity to destroy things like religion, government system, political, economical system of a country. And usually it's linked to espionage and such romantic things as blowing up bridges, sidetracking trains, cloak and dagger activity in Hollywood style. What I'm going to talk about now has absolutely nothing to do with the cliché of espionage or KGB activity of collecting information. So the greatest mistake or misconception, I think, is that whenever we are talking about KGB, for some strange reason, starting from Hollywood movie makers to professors of political science and quote-unquote experts on Soviet affairs, or Kremlinologists as they call themselves, they think that the most desirable thing for Andropov and the whole KGB is to steal blueprints of some supersonic jet, bring it back to Soviet Union and sell it to the Soviet military-industrial complex. This is only partly true. If we take the whole time, money, and manpower that the Soviet Union and KGB in particular spends outside of USSR border, we will discover, of course there are no official statistics unlike with CIA or FBI, that the espionage as such occupies only 10 to 15% of money, time, and manpower. 15% of the activity of KGB. The rest, 85%, is always subversion. And unlike a dictionary of English, Oxford Dictionary, subversion in Soviet terminology means always a destructive, aggressive activity aimed to destroy the country, nation, or geographical area of your enemy. So there's no romantics in there, absolutely. No blowing up bridges, no microfilms in Coca-Cola cans, nothing of that sort. No James Bond nonsense. It's most of this activity is overt, legitimate, and easily observable if you give yourself time and trouble to observe it. But according to the law and law enforcement systems of the Western civilization, it's not a crime. Exactly because of misconception, manipulation of terms. We think that subverter is a person who is going to blow up our beautiful bridges. No. Subverter is a student who comes for exchange, a diplomat, an actor, an artist, a journalist like myself was 10 years ago. Now, subversion is an activity which is a two-way traffic. You cannot subvert an enemy which doesn't want to be subverted. If you know history of Japan, for example, before 20th century, Japan was a closed society. The moment a foreign boat comes to the shores of Japan, the Imperial Japanese Army politely tells them to get lost. And if American salesman comes to the shore of Japan, let's say 60 or 70 years from now back, and says, oh, I have a very beautiful vacuum cleaner for you, with the good financing, he says, please leave us, we don't need your vacuum cleaner. If they don't leave, they shoot them to preserve their culture, ideology, traditions, values intact. You were not able to subvert Japan. You cannot subvert Soviet Union because the borders are closed. The media is censored by the government. The population is controlled by the KGB and internal police. With all the beautiful glossy pictures of Time magazine and Magazine America, which is published by the American embassy in Moscow, you cannot subvert Soviet citizens because the magazine never reaches Soviet citizens. It's collected from the newsstands and thrown to garbage can. Subversion can be only successful when the initiator, the actor, the agent of subversion has a responsive target. It's a two-way traffic. United States is a receptive target of subversion. There is no response similar to that one from United States to the Soviet Union. It stops halfway somewhere. It never reaches here. The theory of subversion goes all the way back 2,500 years ago. The first human being who formulated the tactics of subversion was a Chinese philosopher by the name of Sun Tzu. 2,500 years BC. He was an advisor for several imperial courts in ancient China. And he said, after long meditation, that to implement state policy in a warlike manner, it's the most counterproductive, barbaric, and inefficient to fight on a battlefield. You know that war is continuation of state policy, right? So if you want successfully to implement your state policy, and you start fighting, this is the most idiotic way to do it. The highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but to subvert anything of value in the country of your enemy, until such time that the perception of reality of your enemy is screwed up to such an extent that he does not perceive you as an enemy, and that your system, your civilization, and your ambitions look to your enemy as an alternative, if not desirable, then at least feasible. Better red than dead. That's the ultimate purpose, the final stage of subversion, after which you can simply take your enemy without a single shot being fired, if the subversion is successful. This is basically what subversion is. As you see, not a single mentioning of blowing up bridges. Of course, Sanze didn't know about blowing up bridges. Maybe there were not that many bridges at that time. But the basics of subversion is being taught to every student of KGB school in USSR and to officers of military academies. I'm not sure if the same author is included in the list of reading for American officers, to say nothing about ordinary students of political science. I had difficulty to find the translation of Sanze in a library of a university in Toronto and later on here in Los Angeles. But it's a book which is not available. It is forced to every student in USSR. Every student who is taught to be dealing further in his future career with foreigners. What subversion is? Basically, it consists of 4 periods, time-wise. If we start from here and go this way, time, right? This is the beginning point. The first stage of subversion is the process which is called, basically, demoralization. It says for itself what it is. It takes from, say, 15 to 20 years to demoralize a society. Why 15 or 20 years? This is the time sufficient to educate one generation of students or children. One generation, one lifetime span of a person, a human being, which is dedicated to study, to shaping up the outlook, ideology, personality. No more, no less. Usually it takes from 15 to 20 years. What it includes? It includes influencing, or by various methods, infiltration, propaganda methods, direct contacts, doesn't really matter. I will describe them later. Of various areas where public opinion is formulated or shaped. Religion, educational system, social life, administration, law enforcement system, military, of course, and labor and employer relations, economy. Okay? 5 areas. I will not write them down because we will not have enough space. Sometimes when I describe all the methods, students ask me a question, are you sure this is the result of the Soviet influence? Not necessarily. You see, the tactic of subversion, about which I'm talking, is similar to the martial art, the Japanese martial art. If some of you are familiar with that tactic, probably you will remember that if an enemy is bigger and heavier than yourself, it will be very painful to resist his direct strike. If a heavier person wants to strike me in the face, it would be very naive and counterproductive to stop his blow. The Chinese and Japanese judo art tells us what to do. First to avoid the strike, then to grab the fist and continue his movement in the direction where it was before, right? Until the enemy crashes in the wall. You see? So, what happens here? The target country obviously does something wrong. If it's a free democratic society, there are many different movements within the society. There are obviously, in every society, there are people who are against this society. They may be simple criminals, ideologically in disagreement with the state policy, conscientious enemies, simply psychotic personalities who are against anything, right? And finally, there are a small group of agents of a foreign nation, bought, subverted, recruited, right? The moment all these movements will be directed in one direction, right? This is the time to catch that movement and to continue it until the movement forces the whole society into collapse, into crisis, right? So that's exactly the martial art tactic. We don't stop an enemy. We let him go. We help him to go in the direction we want them to go. Okay? So, on the stage of demoralization, obviously there are tendencies in each society, in each country, which are going to opposite direction from the basic moral values and principles. To take advantage of these movements, to capitalize on them, is the main purpose of the originator of subversion. So we have religion, we have education, we have social life, we have power structure, we have labor relations, unions, and finally we have law and order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? These are the areas of application of subversion. What it means exactly? In case of religion, destroy it, ridicule it, replace it with various sects, cults, which bring people's attention, faith, whether it is naive, primitive, doesn't really matter. As long as the basically accepted religious dogma is being slowly eroded and taken away from the supreme purpose of religion, to keep people in touch with the supreme being, that serves the purpose. Therefore, replace it, accepted, respected religious organizations with fake organizations. Distract people's attention from the real faith and attract them to various different faiths. Education. Distract them from learning something which is constructive, pragmatic, efficient. Instead of mathematics, physics, foreign languages, chemistry, teach them history of urban warfare, natural food, home economy, your sexuality, anything, as long as it takes you away. Okay? Social life. Replace traditionally established institutions and organizations with fake organizations. Take away the initiative from people. Take away the responsibility from naturally established links between individuals, group of individuals, and society at large, and replace them with artificially, bureaucratically controlled bodies. Instead of social life and friendship between neighbors, establish social workers institutions. There are people who are on payroll of whom? Society? No. Bureaucracy. The main concern of social workers is not your family, not you, not social relations between groups of people. The main concern is to get the paycheck from the government. What will be the result of their social work doesn't really matter. They can develop all kinds of concepts to show to the government and to the people that they're useful. Okay. Away from the natural links. Power structure. Okay. The natural bodies of administration, which are traditionally either elected by people at large or appointed by elected leaders of society are being actively substituted by artificial bodies. The bodies of people, groups of people whom nobody elected. Never. As a matter of fact, most of the people don't like them at all, and yet they exist. One of such group is media. Who elected them? How come they have so much power, almost monopolistic power on your mind? They can rape your mind. But who elected them? How come they have a nerve to decide what is good and what is bad for the elected by you, president, and his administration? Who the hell are they? Spiro Agnew, who was hated by the liberal left, called them a bunch of enfeebled snobs. And that's exactly what they are. They think they know. They don't. The level of mediocrity in a big establishment like New York Times, Los Angeles Times, major television network, you don't have to be excellent journalist. You have to be exactly a mediocre journalist. That's easier to survive. There's no competition anymore. You have your good, nice income, $100,000 a year. That's it.
What did I say earlier? And if you think about it, that's exactly what's happening now. They're all mediocre. They're all replaceable. They're all interchangeable. They all think like the same little rats. It doesn't matter if you listen to CNN, MSNBC. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. They're idiots. It's like one after another spewing the same crap. It was a great point that he made, that you don't want someone that's really bright. You want a mediocre and completely subverted into Marxism. And that's exactly what you see with the media today. You got a whole entire media of Jim Acostas out there.
Whether you are better or worse doesn't really matter anymore. As soon as you're smiling to the camera and do your job. That's it. No more competition. Power structure slowly is eroded by the bodies and groups of people who do not have neither qualification nor the will of people to keep them in power, and yet they do have power. Okay. Together with that, there is another process. Law enforcement, law and order organization and structure is being eroded. For the last 20, 25 years, if you see old movies and new movies, you can see that in new movies, a policeman, an officer of the United States Army looks dumb, angry, psychotic, paranoid.
Bingo. It's exactly what they do now. They have Black Lives Matter go after the police. They look angry, annoyed, dumb, stupid. That's exactly what they want. This is part of the demoralization stage. The destabilization stage is to continue and constantly sue them. And even if they win or lose, it doesn't matter. As long as you sound oppressed, that's all that matters. And guess what? They use these activist groups as their little tools in order to progress ideological subversion.
A criminal looks nice, kind of. Well, he smokes hash and shoots the whatever drug. But basically, he's a nice human being. He's creative. And he's unproductive only because society oppresses him. Whereby a general of Pentagon is always, by definition, a dumb, a war maniac. A policeman is a pig, rude policeman. He abuses his power. A generalization like that. The hatred, the mistrust to the people who are supposed to protect you and enforce law and order. Moral relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. Relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. And yet there are still some lawyers who say, look, he's a nice character, as a matter of fact. There was some witness who said, also a criminal, who said, well, he's a nice guy. I asked him one day to burn a house of my enemy, and he wouldn't do it. He's a nice fellow. Erosion. A slow substitution of basic moral principles, whereby a criminal is not a criminal actually. He's a defendant. Even if his guilt is proven, there is still a doubt to kill or not to kill, to be or not to be. Thou shalt not kill, yes. But this line may not necessarily be applicable to a murderer. Thou shalt not murder. That should be the presumption, not that thou shalt not kill. Okay, labor relations. At this stage, within 15 to 20 years, we destroy the traditionally established links of bargaining between employer and employee. The classical Marxist-Leninist theory of natural exchange of goods. A person A has 5 sacks of grain and person B has 5 pairs of shoes. And the natural exchange without money is when they bargain between each other. And only with the introduction of the third force, C, an entirely third foreign stranger who says, no, don't give him 5 sacks of grain, give it to me. And you give me your 5 pairs of shoes and I will distribute it accordingly. So that the economy will go. This is the death of natural exchange, death of natural bargaining. Well, trade unions were established 100 years ago. The objective was to improve working conditions and to protect the rights of workers from those employers who were abusing their right because they had more money. Objectively, at that time, initially, the trade union movement did work. What we see now is that the bargaining process is no longer resulting in the compromise, which is leading objectively to betterment of working conditions and increase of salary. What we see is that after each prolonged strike, the workers lose. Even if they have 10% increase of their salaries, they cannot catch up due to inflation and due to missed time. More than that, millions of people suffer from that strike because economy now is interdependent. It's intertwined like one body. If previously steel workers, say 100 years ago, could strike and nobody would suffer, now it's impossible anymore. If a garbage collector strikes today, the rest of the multi-million city is stinking. I mean, there's no more service. In Quebec, for example, we had the electricians who were on strike in the middle of winter. You can freeze your bottom, and they still were on strike. Did they catch up with the salary? No, they lost. Who benefited? The leaders of trade union. What is the motivation for strike? Improving of workers' condition? No. Obviously, it's not. Then what is it? Ideology. To prove to these capitalists. And the obedient horde of workers, like sheep, follow these people. And they cannot disobey. Why? Because if they do, you know what happens to them. Pickets, murders, shooting truck drivers by picketers. In Montreal, for example, I saw with my own eyes when I was correspondent of CBC International, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, when the workers of aircraft factory destroyed computers and the equipment in the factory. And the administration employed strike breakers. Their cars were turned upside down and burned. Their houses were burned. Their kids were intimidated, and some victims were there. Of that you can be sure. Why? To improve conditions of workers? No. Ideology. Okay, so this is what happens basically. It may or may not happen without the help of the Soviet Union. But the natural tendencies are being greatly taken advantage of and capitalized by the Soviet propaganda systems. How? Whenever trade union strikes, we have influx of propaganda, mass media, ideological dissemination. The workers' right, and we repeat it like parrots. Yes, workers' right. Whose rights? Workers? No. The only freedom of worker to sell his labor according to his own desire and will is taken away from him. By whom? By trade union boss. Unlimited power is given. Responsibility. I want to sell my labor not for $2.50 an hour, but for $2. I don't have right. My freedom is denied to me. I know that if I sell my work for $2 an hour, not for $3 an hour, I will compete better with the other guy who is lazy and more greedy. I don't need $3. I need only $2. No, I was made to believe by media, by business, by advertising agencies that I need more and more and more. Have you ever heard any advertising on TV to consume less? No. No way. Whether you need a six-cylinder car or not, you have to buy it. And hurry up. When I was driving here on the local radio station, an excited announcer said, "You hurry up, rush and save, save, save. There is a pantyhose sale." Save by buying more. Of course. It would be too naive to expect that KGB makes that advertising agency to do such a crazy commercial. No, of course not. But what we did when I was working for Novosti Press, we would snow plow editorial offices, student organizations, religious groups with literature of class struggle. If not directly Marxism, Leninist propaganda, then a propaganda of illegitimate aspirations of working class, betterment of life, equality, mind you. President Kennedy once said, we will make America to believe that people are born equal. Are people born equal? Is there any mentioning in the Bible or any other holy scripture in any religion, if you don't believe me, go to the library and check it. There is not a single word about equality. Just the opposite. By your deeds, God will judge you. What you do is important. The merit of your personality.
But how many times do you hear it all the time being pushed, right? That we are all created equal. We're not. We're not. And that's going to hurt some of your guys' feelings. Oh, we're all created equal in God's eyes. In God's eyes. But in actuality, were we all created equal? Not even close.
You cannot legislate equality. If you want to be equal, you have to be equal. You have to deserve it. And yet we build our society on the principle of equality. We say people are equal. We know it is false. It's a lie. Some people are tall and stupid. Others are short, bold, and clever. If we make them equal by force, if we put the principle of equality in the basis of our socio-political structure, it's the same thing as building a house on sand. Sooner or later it will collapse, and that's exactly what happens. And we, as Soviet propaganda makers, are trying to push you in the direction which you go yourself. Equality, yes, equality. People are equal. Land of equal opportunities. Is it true or not? Think about it. Equal opportunities. Should there be equal opportunities? For me, and for a lazy bastard who come here from some other country and immediately registers as a welfare recipient, benefits. I never received a single dollar. No, sorry, I did receive once. But I never applied for welfare. For the 13 years, I took any job. Security guard, journalist, taxi driver, anything. Well, I was restless, but some people don't like it. They immediately. So why should we have equal opportunities? Why?
The equal opportunity to excel.
Equal opportunity in equal circumstances, yes, but you know people are different. To excel, yes. provided we reach the same level of excellency, perfection, which is hypothetical, distant future. Yes, maybe. But we know perfectly well that even with the best intentions, people could not be equal. Why should we have equality in the, say, legal system? Myself, I'm considering myself a law-abiding citizen, and a person who comes here to rob and shoot, say, the United States administration under Carter imported thousands of Cuban criminals who were non-criminals, yet they were accepted. Do you think it's fair if myself and my wife from Philippines, who work like a, horse as a lab technician in a hospital, should have the same rights as a criminal from Cuba? Why? And yet we repeat as parrots, equality, equality, equality. And the Soviet propaganda system helps us to believe that equality is something which is desirable. Democracy, as it was established by fathers of this country, of this system in the last century, is not equality. Is the system where different people, unequal people, have a chance to survive and help each other in constant competition, in constant perfection. Not inequality, which is superimposed from a godfather or a nice person in Washington, D.C. And the absolute equality exists in Soviet Union, quote-unquote equality. Everybody is equal in dirt, except some people are more equal than the others in Politburo. So, the moment you bring a country to the point of almost total demoralization, when nothing works anymore, when you are not sure whether it is right or wrong, good and bad, but there's no division between evil and good, when even the leaders of church sometimes say, well, violence for the sake of justice, especially social justice, is justified in the countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, well, maybe Rhodesia, and we listen to them and say, yeah, probably it's true. Is it true? No, it is not true. Violence is not justified, especially for the sake of quote-unquote social justice introduced by Marxist-Leninism. That is my former colleagues from Novosti Press Agency.
Oh my gosh. How many times do you hear Marxists always say that? And that's exactly what they're trying to do, is justify their violence.
Okay, so we reach that point. The next step is destabilization. Again, this word says for itself what it is. To destabilize all the relations, all the accepted institutions and organizations in a country of your enemy. How you do it? You don't have to send a battalion of KGB agents to blow up bridges. No. You let them do it themselves. The area of application is, again, it's narrower now. Not like the previous case. The overt legitimate actions of the KGB in this case would be hardly noticeable. There is no crime if a professor who recently went to USSR introduces a course of Marxism-Leninism in a Californian college, for example. Nobody is going to come to his doorstep and say, okay, mister, come, you are under arrest. No, it's not a crime. It's not even considered a moral crime against your country. So the area of application here is narrowing down to economy, again, labor relations, right? To law and order, plus military. And economy, law and order. Yes, and again, the media, but wider scope, little bit different. I'll explain later. Okay, basically 3 areas. Economy. The radicalization of bargaining process. If on that stage we still could achieve, theoretically, some positive compromise between the negotiating sides with say, arbitrary introduction of arbitrary judges, third side, objectively judging the demands of both sides. Here it's radicalization. On the stage of destabilization, we cannot come to compromise even within a family. The husband and wife couldn't figure out which is better. Husband wants his kids to eat at the table, and wife wants him, a child, to roam around the room and drop food all over the floor. They cannot come to compromise unless they start a fight. It's impossible to reach a compromise, constructive compromise between neighbors. Some people say...
It's impossible to come with a compromise with the Democrats, for example. It's impossible. No matter what you try to do, it's impossible. This is the... Okay? You need to start correlating what he says in 1983 and 1984 and to what it is now. There is direct correlation to everything this man says about ideological subversion into what things are now. And part of this destabilization is also now talking about the feminization of men, taking away patriotism, things like that. Okay?
I don't like you to watering your lawn at that time, because exactly at that time I'm walking my dog and he's getting nervous. He cannot pass his bowels, so they cannot compromise. They go to a civil court or something like that. Radicalization of human relations. No more compromise. Fight, fight, fight. The normal, traditionally accepted relations are destabilized. The relations between teachers and students in schools and colleges. Fight. The relations in economical sphere between laborers and employers are further radicalized. No more acceptance of the legitimacy of demands of workers. Unlike Japanese, with the theory Z, if you ever heard about it, where the workers are involved in decision-making process, therefore they don't have moral incentive to fight their bosses. In the United States, it's just the opposite. The harder is the fight, the better. The more heroic they look. When the Greyhound...
Bingo. We just spoke of that. The more they fight, doesn't matter if they win or lose. As long as they come across like they're oppressed and they can have other people believe in their oppression, they'll feel like they win. Look at what's going on in today's society, okay? Everything that he's talking about, whether it's the LGBT community, whether it's black people, whether it's this whole intersectionality wars. We'll go over that at a different time too, because that's postmodernism using Marxist ideology in order to win.
Network was on strike recently. The correspondents of local TV networks all over the United States were approaching these strikers, and they say, oh yes, we are doing something nice. They look like heroes and they were proud. There was some family, the husband was bus driver. Now they decided in a protest against the bosses to camp somewhere in the forest. And they were presented to the audience as a heroic, nice people. You see? The violent clashes between passengers, picketers, and the strikers are presented as something normal. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would be angry, say, why so much hatred? Today we are not. We say, well, commonplace. Radicalization, militarization sometimes. As I explained on that stage, I took a step a little bit further. Shooting people. Okay, law and order now also is pushed into the area where previously people settled their differences peacefully and legitimately. Now we are getting with this court cases in the smallest...
Bingo. Such as BLM, right? BLM constantly goes after the police. It is their use of cultural Marxism, and they always go after the black individual per se. Okay, it doesn't matter that a black person shoots a cop; they won't protest there. It's only when a black person gets shot by a cop that they will have to go after. So, in other words, their common sense that crime is crime. It doesn't matter if it's a cop or if it's or if it's the person that is the supposed victim. It doesn't matter. For us, we're like common sense. Them, it's not. It's only the one way. BLM attacks the cop. The cop killed a person. They must be bad. And you see that they're always protesting and always taking to court. And you're seeing all these people all these police officers go to court. And it doesn't matter that they lose. They always like to claim victimhood. Right?
Irrelevant cases. We cannot solve our problems anymore. The society at large becomes more and more antagonistic between individuals, between groups of individuals, and the society at large. The media puts himself in the opposition to the society.
Bingo. Puts themselves in the opposition. Always. You always see mainstream media now always on the side of the victimhood. Hands up, don't shoot, right? They never were on the side of the cop. It doesn't matter. They are always on the side of the supposed victim, right? On the side of the opposition. Always.
Society in general, at large, separate, alienated. Okay? On that stage, you remember I was talking a couple of hours ago about the sleepers. That's when the students...
Sleeper agents. And it doesn't necessarily have to be only from the KGB. It could be from China. Any of these. It could be from Cuba. Any of these communist countries. These sleeper agents infiltrate themselves into being psychiatrists, psychologists, teachers, doctors, actors, preachers, priests. Everywhere you possibly think, they infiltrate. Anywhere there's a possibility to them indoctrinate, that's where these sleeper agents come in. Politicians, judges.
From, say, United States, if they're trained in Lumumba University, or developing nations that the students I was dealing with, are being sent back from the Soviet Union here. Or even...
Which means, by the way, people always think that they're going to be white because they came from, are trained by Russians. Oh no. You have black communists, very much. You have black communists, you have Asian communists. It doesn't only have to be somebody white that you think speaks with a Russian accent. They in fact probably don't speak with a Russian accent. Okay? But they are infiltrated in Marxism 100%.
They were already in the United States, in the country, which is an object of subversion. They spring to action. The sleepers go up. They slept for 15 to 20 years. Now they become leaders of groups, preachers, public figures. Prominently, they actively include themselves in a political process. All of a sudden, we see a homosexual. 15 years ago, he did his dirty job and nobody cared. Now he makes it a political issue. He demands recognition, respect, human rights.
That's exactly what happens. After he's done, now this is in 84. Remember what happens after this. Hollywood got really, really involved. Then you had the New World Order come in place, and they demanded. First they wanted a day. All right, now first they wanted a parade. Can we have a parade? We said, okay, we can give you a parade. Then after that, they wanted their own day. Then they wanted to see if we'd give them health care. Then they started demanding more and more. And all of a sudden, they created the fake science by Dean Hamer and Simon LeVay with the XQ28 study on genetics, saying that homosexuality was actually genetic. It never was. That study cannot be duplicated or replicated. And if you try to duplicate or replicate that study, they will call you a racist. Why? Because it is a fake study. Okay, and what they were doing is they were looking for a classification a way in the door in order to push sexual perversion. Homosexuality was just a way in the door. Then they started with LGBT, right? Gay, bisexual, now trans. And the whole goal is to try to create an entire society of perversity. This is something that is actually written by Herbert Marcuse, one of the founding fathers of the Frankfurt School. His belief is if you have a complete society of perverse people, you can strip away capitalism and Christianity. So they're combining the teachings of Herbert Marcuse, who was a Marxist, as well as Ideological Subversion, which teaches Marxism. And they're both indoctrination. Okay?
And he rallies a large group of people. And there are violent clashes between him and police, his group and ordinary people. No matter what. It's black against white, yellows against green, doesn't matter where the division line goes. As long as this group come into antagonistic clash, sometimes militantly, sometimes with firearms, that is destabilization process. The sleepers, many of whom are simply KGB agents, become leaders of the process of destabilization. Doesn't mean that Comrade Andropov sends Comrade Ivanov to the United States. The person who takes care is already here. He's a respected citizen of the United States. Sometimes he gets money from various foundations for his legitimate...
like George Soros. Get money from legitimate foundations. Okay? So it doesn't mean that they, like I said, somebody like Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke is not going to speak Russian. Okay, but he's already one of those particular sleeper agents. Could he be one? Possibly. I'm not saying he is. So I should actually rephrase that. I'm saying somebody like Beto O'Rourke, okay? Or somebody like Kamala Harris. Or somebody like some of the actors out there pushing their activism. Doesn't mean that they are necessarily. Remember, indoctrination grabs a bunch of people and then rides with it like a wave. That's why you see so many people indoctrinated. Your own kids, possibly.
A struggle for, I don't know, human rights, women rights, kid lib, prison lib, whatever. There are sympathetic Americans who donate their money to him. This stabilization process usually leads directly to the process of crisis. In case of developing nations, that's the area where I was active. The process starts when the legitimate bodies of power, the social structure collapse. It cannot function anymore. So instead, we have artificial's body injected into society, such as non-elected committees. You remember I was talking about them here. Social workers who are not elected by people, media who are self-appointed rulers of your opinion, some strange groups which claim that they know how to lead society forward. They don't usually. All they care is how to collect donations and sell their own concocted ideas.
Right. So you're going to have these unelected officials that come in and try to take charge, as well as groups that come in and, just like you have now, and they are what you call your fix-it groups. And we let them take charge because why not? They know more than us. They should be able to take, they know how to take care of situations like this. But in actuality, what they really are just groups that are there to make sure that the next regime actually becomes a full-fledged communist regime. So they're there under false pretenses to begin with.
Ideology, mixture of religion and ideology. Here, we have all this artificial's body claiming power. If the power is denied to them, they take it by force.
Exactly. That's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to take Trump by force. They're literally trying to take the presidency and take the United States government by force. How often can they lie about the guy? They don't care. Just keep doing it until they believe that we, as the people of America, will eventually fall for it and believe the bullshit. This is what the communist government does. And everyone's starting to pick it up because everyone's now starting to use the terminology that they are socialist, because they are.
Iran, for example, all of a sudden we have revolutionary committees. What kind of revolution? There was no revolution yet, and yet they had the committees. They were taking power of judgment. They had the power of execution. They had the power of